Welcome to music lesson number 8.
I throw my hands up in the air sometimes, singing Ayo, baby, let's go. And it goes on and on and on, and it goes on and on and on. Yeah, I throw my hands up in the air sometimes, singing Ayo, baby, let's go. And it goes on and on and on, and it goes on and on and on. Yeah, I throw my hands up in the air sometimes, singing Hey, baby, let's go. And it goes on and on and on, and it goes on and on and on, and it goes on and on and on, singing and on, baby, let's go. And it goes on and on and on, and it goes on and on and on, and it goes on and on and on, and it goes on and on and on.
Lesson 7. The Staff. Imagine a road. But let's say that you want to walk across that road. You might need a crosswalk. Sometimes a person might step on a line, or that person might step in between a line, or in the space. Now, let's say for a moment that we're going to add some more lines. And let's take a walk across these lines. We're going to walk on a line and in a space. Line, space, line, space, line, space, line, space. Here are all the steps that went on the lines. And here are all the steps that went in the spaces. Now, we don't write music on roads very often. Usually we do it on white paper with black lines. So here are the lines that we write music on, and we call this a staff. Also in music, we don't usually stand on the lines, but instead we draw notes. Notes can be filled in, or they can be empty. On this staff, we number our lines, bottom to top. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We also number the spaces, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So here is a note. Where is this note? Well, it's on a line, specifically line number 2. Here's another note. Where is this note? On a line, and specifically line number 4. How about this one? In a space. Space number 2. But now you might be wondering, what does this matter for singing? Well, knowing those lines and spaces helps us recognize which notes we're looking at. Let's bring back in some solfege to figure out how this works together. This rectangle is a do marker. It is not a note. This is just a rectangle, but it tells us where do goes. So in this case, this do marker tells us that the note that we're going to call do is going to be in space number 1. So if I bring in a note, and this note is in space number 1, then I know that that note is do. If I bring in a few more notes in the same place, those are also going to be do. Just for kicks, let's sing this. If this is do, do, then I would sing do, do, do. Now that might just be the most boring song in the universe, but there you go. That's how we get started. Let's try another one with notes in different places. We're going to leave do in the same place. So for now, it's the first space. And we'll start off with right. That's probably going to be do. It is, but let's add some different notes this time. How about a note that's up one line? and then the next note's in the space. So notice that we are stepping from a space note to a line note to a space note. So you might figure out that these notes are going to be do, re, and mi. Let's try singing them. Here's do again. Do, do, re, mi. Good. Awesome. Let's try another one. This time we are going to move do. And if that's a little different, you better get used to it because do can move. And when it moves, everything moves with it. Just follow along and you'll figure it out. So we're going to move do, and this time we're going to put it on the third line. And here comes a note. And notice that this note is also on the third line. So it's probably going to be do. And here's another note and a third note. So even though everything is moved to different places, it still starts on do and it goes up by steps. So it's still going to be do, re, and mi. Let's try singing it. Here's do, 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 re, mi. Let's try another one. We're going to move do again. Let's see where it goes this time. Down to the second line. So there's a note that's going to be do, and here are some more. Now we might have mixed it up just a little, only 3 little notes, but let's figure out what they are. The first note is in the same place as our do marker, so that's going to be do. But the second note is on a line 2. There's a skip there. We skipped a note and left one out, so it's not going to be re. That second note is actually going to be mi. The third note comes back down, so it changes directions and goes downward, and it goes from a line to a space. It's going to be re. So, again, these 3 notes are do, mi, and re. A little bit different. Let's sing it and hear what it sounds like. Here's do this time. Do, do, mi, re. Good. Let's put do down here on the bottom line. There are some notes mixed up again. First note again is going to be do. Second note goes from line to space, the very next note, so that's going to be re. Then we skip space to space, so next will be fa. Then we turn around, go down to mi, and then the last note is do again. Let's sing it. Here's do. Do, do, re, fa, mi, do. Now, finally, let's have a first note that's not do. So we're going to leave do in the same place on the bottom line and bring in a new note. So notice that the first note this time is not do. It's in a different place. Do's here on the first line. Our first note that we're looking at is on the second line. So this is actually going to be mi. So these notes are mi, re, and do in that order. So this is where it gets tricky. If this is do, do, where is the first note? Because it's not do. This part can be really tricky for people. You know the first note is mi, so it can help if you sing up in your head. I'll sing out loud, but it helps if you get to where you don't have to, and you can kind of sing it in your head. That's called audiating. So, do, re, mi, mi. So that's your first note is mi. So let's sing these 3 notes. Mi, re, do. Awesome. That lesson taught you a lot of stuff, so congratulations.
For this week's lesson, I decided to, instead of focusing on a particular instrument or talking about the orchestra or talking about a musical concept, I'm going to have all the River Tree students listen to a group called Sprig of That. They're actually a group, a fairly new musical group made up of 3 musicians, and here's a picture of them. And they are here in the Twin Cities. They're Minneapolis people, and they perform in the Twin Cities area. They're very innovative and original with their playing. Either they play music that they've written, and the song that I'm going to play for you is one that the violinist wrote, or they take a piece of music, sometimes folk music, and they make it their own in their own creative way. So it's 3 different instruments, 3 different musicians, and first the violinist will show you a little bit about her violin and the difference between a violin and a fiddle. Then the guitarist will show you his guitar. You are all familiar with the guitar. And finally, the other woman plays what is called the Indian tablas. It's a percussion instrument, and it's really interesting the way she plays it. I want you to pay a special attention to that. So I hope you enjoy this music from Sprig of That.
Hi, my name is Isabel and I play violin with the group Sprig of That. Now the violin is a member of the string family. It has these 4 strings here. And I can either pluck the strings like that, or what I usually do is I use this stick here that is called a bow. Now the bow is made out of wood called Pernambuco. It's a tree that grows just in Brazil. And on the other side, we have these hairs here that are actually made from a horse's tail hair. Now don't worry, the horse is okay. They just give it a little haircut, clean the hairs off, and string them up on this stick. And so that then when I pull the bow across the strings of the violin, it makes a really beautiful, long, flowing sounds like this. Now, this instrument is also sometimes called the fiddle. Now, sometimes people are confused. What's the difference between a violin and a fiddle? Well, I'll tell you, it's really just a difference of what kind of music you play. The piece I just played was an example of a classical piece. Now, classical music is usually long. The pieces take a long time to develop, and usually they are written out on sheet music like this. So you read it just like you're reading a book. Fiddle music is usually made up from smaller songs that you repeat over and over, and you learn them by listening to them. They're not written down. So here's an example of a fiddle piece. That's a little bit about the violin / fiddle. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy our music with Sprig of That up next.
Hey everybody, my name is Elon, and I play this instrument, which is called the guitar. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this before. Maybe one of your parents has one, maybe one of your siblings has one or plays, or maybe you have one and you play. So on a guitar, we have 6 strings, and the way that we make sound is we take one of those strings and we pluck it, which makes it vibrate. And when the wood surrounding the strings vibrates, it almost becomes like a speaker and makes it louder. That's how we make sound on the guitar. This particular kind of guitar is called an acoustic guitar, which means that it doesn't need to be plugged into a speaker to make sound, as opposed to an electric guitar, which does. But acoustic guitars are used in a lot of kinds of music all over the world, don't need to be plugged into a speaker. So to make the strings vibrate to pluck them, we can either use our fingers, and that might sound like this. Or we can use a little piece of plastic called a pick. Look at that. Just a little piece of plastic I hold between my thumb and my index finger, and I use it to play the strings too. I'll play a little bit more from a different piece that uses both the pick and my fingers to vibrate all the strings. It makes some really pretty sounds. I hope you like it. Thanks, everybody.
Hi, my name is Chrissy, and I play the tabla. Tabla are from the country of India, and they belong to the percussion family, which means that we strike them to make a sound. Sometimes I use this big special hammer to tune my tabla. I'll pound down around the outside of the braid to make small changes, and around these pegs to make bigger changes, like this. You'll also see me playing with this baby powder, and it's to make sure that my hands stay smooth and dry while I'm playing. I can get a lot of different sounds out of the tabla. Some are really high, some are really low, and some are in between. When I put them all together, it sounds like this.
That's all for now. I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time.